Hello and welcome to the Life Diet 365 podcast, the place where we detox the pressure, the people pleasing, and the patterns that keep us overwhelmed. I'm your host, Miss Straight Talk, and I keep my motto simple. I'm not here to change your mind. I only want to offer you another perspective. And here's the truth. It doesn't take an hour-long conversation to create a shift in thinking. So whether you're driving to work, sitting in traffic, taking a lunch break, or trying to decompress after a long day, for the next 15 minutes, this is your opportunity to breathe, reset, reflect, and reclaim yourself. So exhale, release the pressure, and let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to Life Diet 365. I'm your host, Miss Straight Talk, and there's no sugar added, none added at all. Did you enjoy or did you get something from setting the boundary line? We are continuing this conversation. So hopefully if you have not had a chance to listen to that episode, go back and check it out. And then you can check it out after you listen to this one. So because I don't want you to stop listening to this one right now. But it will make sense if you catch both of them. So let's talk about weight. Did that just happen? How many times have you said that? Like, you know that thing where you're driving home or maybe you're in the shower or you're lying in bed at night and suddenly you think of the perfect thing to say. I've done it thousands of times. Like, man, why didn't I think about that? Oh, that would have been such a good comeback. The things you should have said in that moment 2 hours ago, 2 days ago, a month ago, and you're almost annoyed at yourself. Like, why didn't I say that? Why didn't I think about it? Like, when it was happening, why didn't I do it? And that delay, that foggy, disoriented feeling in that actual moment, that's not a character flaw. That's not you being slow. That's not even you being weak. Or you're not even too much in your head about this. That is what it looks and feels like when a limit gets crossed and your nervous system is trying to process. What the heck just happened? Faster than your conscious brain can catch up. Like, you like, what? Wait a minute. It's like it's whizzing by like darts and you can hear the wind happening. So welcome back to, setting the line. This is a 3-part series I'm doing on boundaries. And the last episode, we kind of laid the foundation of all this. What limits actually are, why we struggle to hold them, and what happens when we don't. And today we're getting into the recognition piece of it. And before you can do anything about a cross line, you have to be able to feel it, name it, trust it. And for a lot of us, that's the hardest step of all. So let's get into this. Let's dig a little bit deeper into this. So here's what I want to start with, because I think it gets overlooked almost entirely. Your body knows before your brain does. This is not mystical. It's just how the nervous system works, or at least how my system works. Yours may work a little bit differently, but before you've consciously registered that something felt off, your body has already clocked it. Here's the classic one that we all feel. The stomach drop. That's that little alert you get when you read a message and something in you just sinks. The shoulders tense. The way you physically brace or close in on yourself during certain conversations. The hollow yes, where you said it out loud, but some part of you felt the opposite, which is a no. The jaw tightening, the shallow breathing, the weird irritability you get and you can't explain on the drive home. Like that stomach knotting in your. We all know that. I don't even have to keep going into that. And then there's the overreactions. It's not that you're being dramatic. These are signs that your body is sending you a memo. A memo is different from a letter. It's brief. It's typically 1 page. And it kind of bullet points some things. This is a memo. The problem is most of us have gotten so good at overriding those signals because we've spent years learning that our discomfort matters less than someone else's convenience, that we barely notice them. Remember in the last episode, if you were able to check that one out, when I talked about the loose change, in our cup in the car, or we have a jar at home, and how a penny has a value of a penny, but if you put 1,000 pennies in a jar, it adds up to $1,000. That's what happens when we have these emotional things that keep happening to us. So one of the practices I'd encourage you to start to do is it's really simple. It's not a whole lot to it. When something happens, whether it's a conversation, a request, a comment, just do a quick body scan. Nothing informal in meditation. You don't got to put your fingertips together and close your eyes and lay your head back. Not in that formal way. Just ask yourself, how do I feel right now? How do I actually feel right now? Is there any tension anywhere? Does my chest feel right? Does it feel tight? Here's another one. Do I want to leave the room? Those are answers, and those are valid data points. So, and I think the one that you probably will most likely feel is that tension. And then you may want to leave the room. Or escape from the conversation or the situation. The gut reaction is information. It's not drama. It doesn't need to be a full-blown emotion to count. Even a subtle sense of, something's off. When you feel that, that's worth paying attention. So here, those are real. So this is something I want to bring to you. So let's talk about what crossed lines actually look like in real life. Because as I mentioned in the previous episode, if we've lived a life where we have not had any set boundaries to identify, then things will continue to keep happening to us. So let's take a look at what cross lines look like, because sometimes they're obvious. Someone yells at you. Someone takes something without asking. Someone says something that's outright cruel. You know it immediately. But a lot of time, it's subtler than that. And the subtle stuff is what tends to accumulate. Them pennies go from 1 cent to 1,000. I might do an episode on that. So in relationships, and I mean broadly, like friendships included, some of the most common ones are dismissiveness. Think about when you share something that matters to you. Like you're excited about it and you really want people to kind of feel it. Now, no one's ever going to feel 110% excited about something like you are or emotional as you are, but you do want people to kind of lean into it. So when you share something that matters to you and the other person just like shrugs it off or changes the subject or one-ups it with another thing, ooh, those one-uppers. Those people. Now, for those of you that don't know what a one-upper is, that's the person where you tell them that, oh, I just got me a new pair of shoes and I got a deal for like $12. And they'll say, oh my God, I got 2 pair of shoes for 45 cents. That's what I mean. That's a one-upper. They're going to always try to say something that one-ups what you said. And so that's a diminishing feeling. That's real. Your thing mattered and it was treated like it didn't. Your excitement mattered and it was treated like it was nothing. Then there's the emotional dumping, which is different from a friend venting or needing support. Emotional dumping is a pattern. And this is something that I would strongly encourage that you start to pay attention to in all of the relationships in your life to see who's the emotional dumper and who's not. Emotional dumping is a pattern where one person consistently unloads on the other with no awareness of the impact, no reciprocity, no particular desire for the other person to be okay. If you regularly hang up the phone feeling worse when you answered it, that's worth noticing. Because those people, they will call or they'll text or they'll come and have a conversation with you and they'll unload. And they're not paying attention to your reaction. They're not paying attention to your responses. They might not be even paying attention to like your facial expressions that may say, oh my God, I don't really want to hear this, but they're still dumping on you. Pay attention to that. So then there's a classic where, 90% of us encounter, there's some things at work. And some of the big ones, are these goalposts and they just kind of keep moving. You meet a standard, instead of acknowledgement, you get a new high standard. When you perform well, you get more stuff to perform well. You perform well again, you get more stuff to perform well. I think you get the hint. And these requests creep up beyond your role without conversation, like someone just kind of coming dumping stuff on you. Being talked over in meetings. Now, that doesn't really happen to me. But I have seen it happen to other people, and I've sat there and I've watched and I'm like, man, that is so crazy. Like they just dismissed and disrespected that person. Being given credit less readily than your other colleagues, especially like we talked about in the other episode, where women kind of, get looked at as being angry while, men are just being, necessarily assertive. And then the quick question that's never quick. And I'm going to share something with you. This is so funny because I have something and it just recently happened to me because I was telling a long story and someone kind of pulled it on me. I always, you always tell when people kind of get into that long version of something. And sometimes you really don't need to hear the whole thing. You really just want to get the meat of it. And then you will ask the questions. So when I feel that that's about to happen so that I don't feel emotionally drained, I protect my space, I protect my peace. I will typically say, can you just give me the short version? And then if they still kind of go long, no, I need it a little bit shorter than that. And you may, in the onset, outside looking in, it may look rude, but I have to protect my space. I have to protect my time because sometimes people want to come and just tell you these long versions because they just want to take up your time and they think they have the right to. And then here's the other one, family. With family, it tends to be the comments, the ones about your choices, your body, your relationship, your parenting. We talked about this. And the way they're delivered, often with a smile and framed with concern. Well, we're only just looking out for your best interest. Well, I was just thinking, maybe you shouldn't do that or maybe you shouldn't move there because that's so far away from family. And what they're really saying is, no, we really need you here so we can continue to abuse your availability. It may seem genuine and hard to call out without, you making a scene. But your family members, so you know who to look at and who to look out for. So these are just some quick scenarios I just want to give you. I can give you a whole bunch more, but we try to keep this within a certain drive time frame. You know what I'm saying? So now I want to spend some time on the subtle stuff because I think this is where most of us get stuck. And from time to time, I get stuck, but I have develop some tools and some tips and tricks to help me to identify and to get myself through those things, navigate. Death by 1,000 cuts. We've heard that phrase. I haven't heard it a lot, but I've heard it. That's the phrase that comes to mind. It's the things where no single incident feels worth addressing. It's not that bad. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Oh, they didn't mean it like that. And so you let it go. And then the next one, and then the next, and slowly you're carrying this weight that you can't even fully articulate because each individual brick felt too small to name. And now someone has built a whole mansion with you having hurt feelings. There's a whole building, whole house, and you hadn't dealt with it because one brick at a time, you kept letting it happen, dismissing it. And then there's particularly the insidious thing that sometimes happens. When you do try to name it, you get told you're too sensitive. Ooh, I hate when people say that. I do. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things. Now this one right here. Don't even let anyone minimize your experience because your experience is your experience. And it may seem or feel like it should have been handled a different way from someone else. But if that's how you're feeling it, then that's how you're feeling. So you're not overreacting. And if that happens enough, especially if someone you love or respect, you start to doubt and misread your own feelings. And you start saying, well, is this true? Am I really overreacting? Am I really just putting too much into it? No, that's not a coincidence. Making someone question their own perception is one of the ways of controlling behavior. People try to control how you feel, how you think, how you respond, because you're not speaking up for yourself. But when you begin to develop your own tools and your tips and tricks, you start to push back. And they're going to start looking at you a little funny, but that's okay. That's okay. Because right now, what we're trying to share and I'm sharing with you is about creating boundaries and creating your perspective of the things around you. So now, and I want to say this because it's important. Trusting your gut does not mean every discomfort is someone else's fault or that every cross line is malicious. People overstep accidentally all the time. I'm raising both hands on this because I do that. And if I recognize that I do that to a person, I try to correct it as soon as possible because I don't want them to feel like they have to walk around wondering what they should have said to me. So it's reciprocal. It's not just about you. It's about how you respond to others as well. Relationships are messy and imperfect, but intent doesn't cancel impact. Let me change that. Let me repeat that. Intent doesn't cancel impact. You're allowed to feel what you feel and name what happened regardless of what the other person meant by it. So let's talk about, that was good. I still want to kind of go back and get some more stuff in that one, but don't want to keep you too long. Retrospective versus real-time recognition. So here's something I really want to normalize. It is completely fine to recognize a crossing after the fact. Most people do because we're thinking and we're processing. That's the drive home phenomenon that I started off with, if you remember. You don't have to catch it in real time to deal with it. Naming it later, even days later, is still valid. It still counts. It's still worth processing and potentially addressing. But over time, it is useful to get faster. You got to be a little more quick-witted and be able to kind of deal with it in real time. Not so, you can at least buy yourself some time to think about it because some people like to think. But the moment where instead of either freezing up or automatically saying yes, you create a tiny bit of space. So I'm just saying you can create that space to think, but then that's where your tools come in handy. And the simplest way to do that is to give yourself permission to pause. Let me think about that. I'll get back to you. Can I have a day on that? These are not stalling tactics. They're completely reasonable responses that are being put instead of being put on the spot. And they give your nervous system the time to catch up with what just happened. Remember, we talked about the nervous system in the beginning. So the next time when you do respond, you're responding from a place of actual choice rather than automatic reflex. The goal isn't to become hypervigilant, walking into every room on high alert, analyzing every interaction. That's exhausting. That's simply exhausting. And it's not what I'm going for. It's not the conversation that I'm trying to have with you. The goal is just to be a little more fluent in your own internal language. So when something happens, you hear yourself. So now let's zoom ourselves on back down to earth. Today we talked about recognition, the body signals, the stomach drop, the tension, the hollow yes. We walked through what crossings actually look like crossing the line actually looks like in the real world, at work, in relationships, and with our family. We talked about subtle stuff, the stuff that kind of accumulates. Your homework this week is to write down one crossing. If you have more, you can write them down. But right now, write at least one. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It could be small. But what happened? How did you feel? And let's be honest. What did you wish you had said or done? You don't have to do anything with it. Just get it out of your head and onto paper. Because that's what we're aiming for with this. Because now when you can get it on paper, get it out of your head and get it on paper, you can begin to establish those lines, and you will know and be able to identify instantly when they're being crossed. So I'll end where I began. Wait, did that just happen? The next time you say that, you will be able to say, yep, I stood up for myself. I responded the way I wanted to respond. I gave the reaction that I felt, and I feel good about it. This has been another great episode of the Life Diet 365 with your host, Miss Straight Talk, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. And if you know someone else who is driving, sitting somewhere for 15 minutes, they could take the time to join this podcast. Take care. Bye-bye. And just like that, another conversation, another perspective, and hopefully another step toward reclaiming yourself. Listen, every time you say yes to everybody else at the expense of yourself, you are teaching people that your boundaries are negotiable. Listen, constantly sacrificing yourself to keep everybody else comfortable will eventually leave you emotionally bankrupt. You do not have to earn rest, apologize for protecting your peace, or explain every boundary you set. Because around here, we don't say no with guilt, we say it with clarity. Until next time, protect your peace, guard your energy, and remember, what drains you will never sustain you. This has been the Life Diet 365 podcast with Miss Straight Talk. Thanks for listening, and I hope you will subscribe and join me the next time. Take care. Bye-bye.